So I always like onion planting day. It's always quite an exciting day for me. I just like growing onions. It's one of my favourite things to grow. And we do grow quite a few, about 600 a year, something like that. And we grow them quite intensively. I'll show you how we do it. So these are my onions. It's been really warm over the last week or so. So I've had them outside on top of my water tanks. These are salad onions down here. There's shallots at the end there, and these are the main crop onions, and I won't be planting all of them today, but we have got some really cold weather coming, and so I like to have them in the ground. I don't know whether there's any reason for this. It's just my personal preference. I'd rather the roots don't freeze and they won't freeze in the ground. So I'll show you where I'm planting them. So this bed was the spinach bed, or one of the many spinach beds, and I finished harvesting that at the weekend, and so I've just prepared it, just give it no good water, a bit of bloodfish and bone, about a handful per square metre, dribbled a little bit of extra bloodfish and bone into the holes, pre-watered the holes, and they're ready to go. Now the holes are dibbed just slightly bigger than the modules so that the onions will sit slightly below the level of the compost. No new compost on this bed this year. I did put some new compost on it back in autumn when I planted the spinach. So these will be out obviously in August, and this bed will be replanted for winter. When it comes to the density, I put 4 seedlings in each of these modules, and I wanted 3 to germinate. Now there's a few where all 4 germinated, and I'll just pull those out at planting time. So I've got 25 holes dibbed in these beds, and these beds are just over 1 metre square, so I'm aiming for about 70 onions per metre squared. So that will give me medium-sized onions, so 70, 75 medium-sized onions per square metre, so I'll have 150 in these 2 beds. Quite a lot of mare's tail in these beds, and I don't really like pulling it up, so I'll just snip it off so as not to disturb the onions. I'm not into planting in this bed either. These onions are Red Baron, and I'm very happy with them. They're holding together really nicely in the module, not at all root bound, and these are some of the seedlings that I've thinned out. Now you could, in theory, leave these seedlings in and thin them out later on and use them as salad onions, spring onions, but I prefer not to do that just because I have loads of salad onions already, and I just tend not to get round to doing the thinning. And like last year, and I ended up with 4 or 5 onions in each station, and that was just too high a density, and I ended up with a few too many small onions. So I basically want uniform medium-sized onions that are perfect for storing and also for cooking, because we only need 1 medium-sized onion a day. So that's the way that I like to do it. And just, as I mentioned, check for 3 seedlings and just pop it in there, and then just push it down with 2 fingers on each side, so it's about 1 to 2 centimetres below the compost level, and that just gets it a little bit closer to the moist ground. And they just seem to like it like that. I don't backfill, I just leave them in that little depression, and of course that aids with watering as well, because then that traps the water. Now a lot of people suffer from onion fly. We've got loads of onion fly on this site as well. I water with the fruit and veg protection nematode from Nemesis, which I also use for my carrots for carrot fly, and with the brassicas for cabbage root fly. And so it's reasonably cost effective, given that I'm kind of sharing a packet of that across all those different veggies. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, some people get it, some people don't. It's not exactly clear whether it's the onion, the nematode that's helping me, or just the fact that my plot is just slightly different to my neighbour's plot in terms of, you know, it's got these raised bed sides, it's a bit higher up, don't know, who knows. Now obviously I'm planting these and they're in a cold frame because we've got this cold snap coming up with the wind chill down to probably -6, -7. I will actually close this cold frame lid. I don't normally plant my onions in cold frames. It just so happens that this cold frame is free at this time of year, and normally I will put them just out in an open bed, just with a little bit of fleece over them, just to give them some wind protection, but I don't need to bother with fleece for these. So this bed was also a spinach bed, and this one is slightly more interesting and slightly more messy. So I've got some radishes down the front here. These will be harvested next week probably, and I'll just put more onions down the front there. But what makes this bed a bit more interesting is it is interplanted with parsnips. So all the parsnips are just starting to germinate now, and they are in here germinating fairly early because I want to harvest these in September and early October so I can replant this bed with spinach again. This bed is going to be shallots though, rather than onions, as is that one down there. And again, because of the spinach, it happens to be a cold frame. Hopefully that is giving the parsnips a bit more of an early start as well. As I say, I want to harvest them fairly early. This is a quarter of my parsnips, so basically this is the parsnip bed for autumn, and then we'll have another few to get us through winter. All of those onions were sown on the 2nd of February, and I much prefer that. I have tried them earlier on in January, but the quality of them is much better, I think, when you do them in February. These were done on the 26th of January, and these are Zerbun onions. Also, some people call them shallots because of the shape. And I'm going to put those in at whatever density they are, you know, because we quite like a range of sizes for our shallots. We don't mind a mix of small and mediums, whereas for the onions we tend to want everything roughly the same medium size. I'll actually put a picture up to show you the onion harvest from last year so you can see what it's like. It wasn't too bad. I was pretty pleased with it, but I am kind of refining my onion growing technique at the moment, so hopefully this year will be better. So let's just talk a little bit more about these parsnips. So I did pre-germinate these, so chitted them on kitchen roll in a Tupperware container with the lid closed to keep them nice and moist, and I just dropped 3 chitted seeds, so ones that had actually started to sprout, not very big, into each of these holes, and most of them have come up. And so I was pretty happy with that technique, although I won't be doing that for my main crop parsnips. I'll just do the same thing that I always do, just make a depression and drop 3 or 4 seeds in. And what else is there to say about onions? Not a lot, although I have written a little chapter in my ebook all about growing onions and shallots, which you can check out if you want. I do tend to grow my onions cool, so I just germinate them inside the house, and as soon as they break surface I bring them to the unheated polytunnel and they just grow away in there, and I like to plant them nice and young, and I don't have space really to plant them at any other stage, but I've never had a problem with planting them young. So this is the final bed, and this one was radishes a couple of days ago. It looked like that one, and then that one will be harvested next week, and that will also be onions. And I just re-emphasise the fact there is absolutely no need to use cold frames for onions. I'm not even sure there's any advantage to it. It's just that my crop rotation just happens to require me to use these beds a little bit wastefully and grow onions in them once every few years. There we go. So this bed actually was a carrot bed before it was a radish bed, and then it's an onion bed, and then it will probably be something like a winter spinach bed by the time it's finished. So yeah, they get used generally 4 crops a year out of these beds. So hope you like this quick video. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.